guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be a very special kind of video today. Today will be my first manga review, and it will be of the Skypiea arc from the One Piece manga. I had recently finished all of it. All 3 volumes of the omnibus volumes for the Skypiea arc, and I thought it'd change up the dynamic a little bit and we talk about my opinion of it and just get a discussion going as we go along. So let's go ahead and begin and talk about my opinion of the arc. So I've got a few questions I'm going to ask, and it's going to be a little bit of a longer form of a video today, and I really want to deep dive into my opinion of the arc. And I know a lot of people have had their opinions on it, and I know probably mine's going to be a little bit similar to certain spots, some not so much in others' opinion. And one of the questions I'm going to ask is, how was the introduction to the Skypiea arc? Personally, the Jaya arc was really interesting. It had a few bits here and there, and especially being introduced to Blackbeard for the first time was very interesting. Had a great interaction with Luffy where they just had this great gag where they're sitting at the bar and just enjoying some food, drinking something, and then one says the drink's really good while the other says, hey, no, this is terrible. What kind of crap is this? and then of course the cherry pie bit where they say, Blackbeard says, oh, this is a pretty good cherry pie, and Luffy says, no, this is terrible. And in a simple joke, it kind of just shows the difference between the two pirates, which I really like how they do that, because as you know, in later arcs he becomes very much more involved with the story, kind of in the background, kind of not. That's how his character kind of works. And being able to see the beginnings of his crew is very interesting. Seeing the guy walk around on his horse that's sick, that has like the plague fruit or something, that's what it's called, where he has like these different plagues he can give people, or different diseases that he can give people by touch or vicinity. I think that's how it works. And then of course the few others there. And I mean, of course, the Straw Hat's reactions to Bellamy and how he treats them is such a great scene. And the last interaction that they have with Blackbeard that seals the deal at the beginning of the Jaya arc, where he says, you don't always need your fists to show your might, which is a very wonderful way to show how these two characters, Zoro and Luffy, work. At the end of the day, it just shows you a lot of times how these characters are, that they don't have to fight all the time. They don't have to always draw out their sword to fight, that they can show who they are by, how can I say this, not just through action, but through demonstration. I guess demonstration is an action, so like execution, and just taking all the crap from Bellamy and just getting beat the crap by the pirates. And eventually, of course, we get to meet Cricket, alongside meeting earlier the two monkeys that were diving out at the sea. I forgot their names, to be perfectly honest. They're not irrelevant, but they're not really all that important to the story, but they're important to the one character that connects the dots to the whole rest of the Skypiea arc. And so we end up meeting Cricket, and the Straw Hats kind of have a big battle with them for a little bit, if I remember correctly. And eventually they end up actually becoming friends with Cricket and finding out that apparently, after looking for the South Bird, the East Bird? I think it's the South Bird, excuse me. The South Bird. They come to find out, they go to find out like that the Bellamy pirates ended up taking some of the stuff that was crickets, some of the gold or whatever they found. I'm trying to remember offhand. I'll have to, because I don't have the part where it shows the most of the Jaya arc. It's been a bit since I've read the Jaya arc, but I'm like remembering offhand. And what's important about this is it sets up not only the attitude of Luffy that's been around since like the very beginning of the series, is how much he actually does care about people that he genuinely cares about. Despite the fact it's like, at first you probably think he wouldn't really care because it's like, oh, he's doing his own thing, but it just shows you this characteristic of Luffy's that is just not just compassion, but it's also awareness. There's a lot more emotional awareness, and as we move forward, and of course we get that great moment where Luffy finally smacks the crap out of Bellamy. And so after that, and they start heading towards that part of the sea where it shoots up, at sea, where it just launches the Going Merry into the sky, and we get to have a little interaction with Blackbeard before that happens. Their ship gets destroyed, and eventually, of course, they get launched up. And I know I'm not going into too much detail. I'm trying to at least not take too much time, because it's like Jaya technically in itself is kind of a separate arc, but more so a setup arc for the Sky Island arc or the Skypiea arc. And so they go through that little geyser, I guess I would call it, and they just ride that geyser all the way up there, and somehow barely even make it, almost just die trying to get to the island. And so they eventually make it to the island, have that interaction with the old Skypiean woman, talking about the billion X-tolls, what the currency of Skypiea is, and so have that kind of weird interaction, but end up having to go through for free anyway, and then meeting up with Conus and her father a little bit later on, and it's just, as we move forward, as we're going through this beginning portion, it feels a little slow to me and a little boring, especially for One Piece, which is strange because it's like, this is the first time I've seen in like a really major arc besides Alabasta, because Alabasta in itself, and I might go back and review the other arcs because those are important, but I wanted to review where I was at personally. So whenever I can, of course, later on in the future, I probably will be doing a Water 7 review. And, well, maybe I'll do a small review of Long Ring, Long Island. I might not, I don't know. I thought it was an okay arc, but I digress. So we get to this portion where we meet the locals on Angel Island, and it's okay. A lot of people might get mad at me for saying this, but it's like, I don't really care for Conus and her dad, and I didn't really care for another thing that happens to him later on, because it's just like, I don't really feel too connected to the people of Angel Island at all. They seem like kind of like an afterthought, and then I don't know. It's just me. And I guess we'll go ahead and get into I'll switch it up a little bit. We'll do the kind of the negative first. What did I not enjoy about the arc so far? Especially, we'll talk a little bit more about the introduction too. It's a slow build up. It's a slow arc. It takes time to build up, and unfortunately, it just causes it to feel, I'm not going to say disjointed. It just makes it feel like I'm wasting my time getting to know these people. Even the Shandians, except for maybe one. I'm just going to say this. There's one that I'll talk about a little bit later. How can I say this? It didn't make me feel for these people. It didn't really connect me to these people. I couldn't really put myself into their shoes. For some odd reason, it just felt like this weird disconnect. And on either side, actually, either the people of Angel Island or the Shandians and their story, and then the villains were okay. Inaru was above average. Although having great power, cool powers, it's a seriously dangerous devil fruit. And just more and more parts of it feels slow. It feels long somehow, even though it's only about technically 8.5 volumes, which is not bad, but it's I don't know. It takes a while for it to really build up. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and go to the next question. Is what did I enjoy? Honestly, I did enjoy the parts where we got to see more scenery, where it looked really nice. Like the Skypiea itself in the manga looks fantastic, and in the anime it just adds a little bit more depth to the world. And seeing that white sea is such an interesting concept, because clouds in themselves are just evaporated water, and they still walk through it as if it's like an ocean. It's a really neat idea. The designs of the Skypians and the Shandosians they're neat. They're neat enough. They're unique style. And I will say some of the fights were pretty neat. The Zoro ones were a bit boring, surprisingly. The fights with Luffy were great. I mean, surprisingly a lot better. The stuff that we got with Sanji was pretty good, especially near the end. We had that one moment, which was neat, but he was kind of barely in there. Usopp was actually kind of bearable in this. I'm not a fan of Usopp, but here it's okay, he's doing some stuff here and there. He's doing some stuff, and he did a little bit in Alabasta. I'll admit, he got a lot better for me in Alabasta. And here he's okay, he's actually starting to do stuff, but he's still kind of acting scared. Chopper, I do like some of the stuff that they do with Chopper. I'm not a fan of Chopper. I do like his character, but I'm not a fan, to be honest. But having him have those moments with one of the villains was neat. And I'll talk about that in the next question. The feel of it was interesting. It just felt mysterious. It felt weird. It felt strange and different from a lot what we're used to. And the tone is very, I don't know, it's not just reverent. It's just, there is this underlying tone of mystery. It's so strange. And even at the beginning, it's such a weird idea. We don't know everything about Skypiea near the beginning yet, and so as we go along and we move forward, and I want to add this part in to where I just, how can I say this? I enjoy the interactions that we have with the characters. It's just, there's not a lot of, I don't know how to say this, but it's I find a lot of the characters introduced, like I said earlier, boring and didn't really make me want to care about these people. And I understand it's a lot of people say, well, this is about tribalism and people losing their homeland, and it has some Native American undertones. Of course you wouldn't understand, you're a white boy, but it's it's also not just Native American. If you also notice, it's Aztec, it's a mix of different things. It's with the Angels, they have this kind of futuristic, modernistic city where it has this religion that is so strange and weird, and they worship Inaru as their kami. And it's okay, so it's it's not like a post-apocalyptic. It's more like a postmodern city with a weird sky cloud aesthetic, and like I said, I don't really care for the Skypeans as much as I wanted to. And I wanted to have that connection, but I'm just having a hard time trying to connect on either side, because it's like, okay, either side is basically kind of screwed up. And I guess with the next question was like, how did the character arcs move forward? Not by much. We got a little bit more with Robin here and there, where we got to see more of her archaeologist side and history discovering side, which is very interesting. We got to see a little bit more of that, and even though barely being in there, I appreciated seeing that aspect of her. I mean, Luffy's being Luffy. He's still the same guy he was back then as he is now. Zoro. I mean, he learns new techniques throughout this, where he's able to shoot kind of like the shockwave from his swords. Chopper gets his moments, which are really good, where he fights off one of the villains of Inaru's crew, or cult, or whatever. And he gets those little moments where he starts braving up and starts actually trying to be a pirate, which is nice. It's these nice little moments where you see this small little scared creature start acting brave, start doing stuff, and of course seeing that really neat moment where he beats that villain who ends up opening a hot springs after the end of the arc with another character, and Usopp getting his moment, Nami kind of getting a moment here and there, especially kind of more so near the end, helping out Luffy beat Inaru, and then Usopp helping out Sanji get where he needs to be. A lot of the character arcs in this is more so focused on the Shandians and the Angels and the Kami, and it didn't really move the full arc. They didn't really move forward for me. They just felt like, okay, they were at a stalemate. They're kind of at a stagnated point until like the end of the story. And so this brings us to our next question. Did this arc offer any payoff? It set up a lot of different things I didn't realize, because due to spoilers, of course, having hints of the sun god Nika in there, of course, Joy Boy being referenced technically at the end of this part, where Luffy does that big shadowy jump in the sky thing to show that Cricket that he's there, and they rang the bell to let them know. Now that's a whole different thing. One other thing that really paid off is the Nolan story, which was really interesting. How we got introduced to that story. Cricket's ancestor, Mont LeBlanc Cricket? So it's Mont LeBlanc Nolan or something like that. And we get to see that story kind of pay off at the end, and see this wonderful story of two people from opposite cultures becoming really great friends, and an unfortunate downfall to that friendship, to where there's regret. And that surprisingly really got me somewhere, because at one point I unfortunately had to cut things off with a friend of mine, and we weren't doing a good job at being friends for each other, and I still regret it. And having that regret still there, and reading through this story and seeing the apology at the end of Nolan and Kalgara's arc was so heartfelt. It felt real. It felt emotional, and I wanted more. I wanted more of that. And I wanted stuff like that throughout the entire thing. And we kind of get that with Viper, the current leader of the Shandians, or I guess like lead warrior, I guess, not the technical chief, but so, and we kind of get this Viper realizing, okay, wait, these guys are actually trying to help out the ancestor of Noland. Why am I trying to stop this? Why am I should be helping instead of trying to, be the way I've been. And the Nolan story paid off super well. The setup for hints of the Joy Boy was interesting. I mean, even with the campfire scene, that was really interesting, especially with what we know now moving forward. I think, honestly, I mean, other than that, and then also, of course, getting the ending we got, a wonderful ending. Wonderful. I was surprised how wonderfully written that ending was, to finally see Cricket get the peace and recognition he so deserves. And so this also brings us to our next question. Were the newly introduced characters interesting? And I've talked about it here and there, but I want to go in a little bit deeper. I do not think so. I think they were kind of boring, except the only two that mattered to me was Nolan and Kalgara. Those two guys made the art for me. And the villains are, and I'll talk about this in the next question, but the villains are boring. Especially Inaru, you just get this cocky, arrogant, arrogant, pompous, kingly-like person, which he's supposed to be, and it makes a lot of sense with a guy with electricity powers and those ridiculously long earlobes and the Raiden drums from Japanese mythology. It's a strange thing. You get introduced to so many of these new guys, like Konus and her father, the Shandians, the Kami and their group, and all the other henchmen in that, and I got bored of these characters. I didn't really connect with Viper. I didn't really connect with, well, maybe more so near the end, where he realized the error of his ways a little bit. I didn't really connect with any of them, and especially, and I'm going to say this, and it's going to be a little mean when I say this, but when Konus' father gets completely blown away and basically looks like he's dead, I didn't really have much of a reaction. I could have cared less. I could have cared less about her dad and her at all, because it's like we don't get a whole lot from them. We don't get a whole lot from them at all, due to the fact it's just like they're really not consequential to the story. They're not really that important to the story. Even though this is technically their arc, their story, I'm like, how am I supposed to care about these two characters? These two insignificant characters. And so, even the Shandian story, besides Kalgara, their tribe, I could have cared less about them. Like, genuinely, if they were not there, I could have cared less about them. It would have been weird, there would have been no connection with Kalgara, but it's like, oh, I understand this, and this. I just want to be able to care for these characters, but I can't. There's just no connection point. There's no point. I can't put my feet in their shoes. I don't understand them. They're strange. They're very... And I know it's meant to be an allegory of tribalism and colonialism clashing, and modernism and old-fashioned ways and traditionalism being head-to-head, but it just doesn't work for me. In a story for One Piece, I can see what Oda was trying to do, but it didn't work for me. It didn't. And it's like a weird parody of The Last of the Mohicans. If you've seen that movie, it's fantastic. Great movie. It just feels like a parody of that, and seeing these weird interactions. And it's just... And so, let's go ahead and go to the next question. And did I enjoy the villains of the story? No, they were boring as crap. They had no consequence to the story. Boring as crap. Especially the stupid ball dude. Oh my god, I can't even remember his name. I could care less. And his two brothers just suck. They're weird. They're just Bubbles? Bubbles is their ability? Bubbles? And then the next guy with the crazy hair that fought Chopper, I'm going to just call him a retard. I'm sorry. He's just retarded. If that gets me in trouble with people, he's just retarded. I don't know why he acts like that. He's like... and then rolling his eyes in the back of his head. It did not, those jokes did not land with me. I could have cared less about his abilities. He's like the swamp child guy, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm glad we got something with Chopper, and I'm glad Chopper got to get rid of that dude, but it's like, bro, I could care less about this villain. And then the sword villain, no. With his puppy dog, giant dog, who can stand up on his hind legs and fight, it's so boring. And I guess you wouldn't really count the snake as a villain, but I'm going to say this, I did not like Luffy being stuck in the snake the whole time. It was near the end of the story. It was such a weird idea. I didn't like that. Thought it was boring, and it just padded out time for no reason. And then Inaru himself, he's an interesting guy that he has this interesting ability to be, he's a Logia. He's a Logia fruit. And so, being a Logia fruit, he embodies the element of the fruit he is, the Rumble fruit. And he does some not so interesting stuff in the beginning. He just shoots these big laser beams of lightning down and kills people with it. And he doesn't start doing anything creative until the Luffy fight, which I appreciate, but it's also like, okay, can you not just electrocute people to death? It's like, there's got to be more than that. And I liked the way he used it against Luffy in the fight, how he... and the connection of how rubber is very resistant to electricity, so it's like, that's neat. I like that, and it just makes Inaru actually have to try hard, actually have to try and fight Luffy, and be able to, disappear into the gold, the metal, the conductive metal. Although I don't think, excuse me, I don't think gold is actually conductive. I'll have to find out, but it's an interesting thing to where he disappears into the gold, and Luffy's trying to find him, and comes back out, melts the gold, melts that huge ball onto Luffy, and then of course changing his staff into the trident with lightning, a really interesting idea. Has a lot of interesting ideas for an ability, but him as a character is just boring. And that's another thing that made me really not care for Inaru, besides the fact that he's got a cool ability. With Crocodile from the last arc, I felt more like, okay, this guy's a looming threat. He's been set up really well for Baroque works. He actually has some semblance of a interesting plot, and I actually got involved with the story. But with Inaru, it's just a boring slate of a character that I did not enjoy. And I know villains are going to get better, and there's some villains that are not so much better. For example, Big Mom, I haven't got to that point. I know that's way, way, way down on the line. And then Gecko Moria, which is also a little bit further on after Water 7. I'm just looking forward to actually being introduced to CP9 for the first time and seeing all that group work together to beat the crap out of the Straw Hats. I want to see that. And to kind of move along here a little bit, did the concepts from this arc expand the world? I would say the dial system did a little bit, where you got to see all the different dials and stuff, and how the villains used them, how the heroes used them, and it's an interesting concept. I like it, and I wish we get to see more of that and see how it evolves. I know in the Long Island arc, they used the impact dial for just a little bit. which is that Usopp has taped to his hand. Besides that, and of course getting some more on the poneglyphs about how they have some of the secrets to lead to the last island to get to the One Piece, that's an important thing. Everything else, besides the fact that Skypiea technically was a part of Jaya at one point, that's about it. Nothing else really expands upon anything, and it didn't really make anything too interesting. And I mean, we got the types of devil fruit for the first time. There's the Zoan, the Paramecia, and the Logia. And then of course later on there's like the mythical Zoan. So it's like we get these different types of devil fruit users, and I think technically Luffy in this arc is actually called a Paramecia, despite the fact that it is not a Paramecia. It's actually a mythical Zoan, the Hito no Mi Nika model. And so, yeah, not a lot. I mean, the devil fruits got expanded, the dial system got expanded upon, the Shandian story didn't really add anything. And so, I'm sorry. I wanted to connect with these guys, but I can't. It's a little bit harder to connect with them because I want to be able to care about these guys, but it's like, for example, it's like, I'm trying to think of something. It's like if the Last of the Mohicans introduced two different sets of groups instead of just focusing on one group, because I feel like with these many groups being involved, it feels like you have to kind of have their separate sections and kind of, you know, add hints to them and just kind of not slow down the introductions, but like, okay, have this section be for people of Angel Island, have this section be for the Shandians and their interactions with the Straw Hats, and then of course eventually having the fight between, which is basically what happens, but it just feels like it's just everybody's too interconnected, everybody's too involved, and it's just like I don't really care. Like, there's too many characters, and it affects the pacing so much to where it's so slow, it's drawn out, the fights, they could have been better. The ball guy was okay. I liked when Sanji, drop kick, was axe kicked in the air and cracked his skull, which was cool, but it's like, bro, I just want to get to the end, bro. I want to get to the end. I'm tired of having this long-winded, boring, uneventful setup. It's just so boring. Like, it pads out, and I can't stand it. I'm sitting here trying to read through it, and like, I legitimately, when I read the Jaya arc, I read that I had to take a break because the Alabasta arc was just a lot. And so coming back a year later and reading this and having that attention span to read that is, it's like, it's such a weird tone, not a tone shift, but such a pacing shift. It's just so strange. I mean, I know Alabasta took its time here and there. It took a while, and I know in the anime it's like way longer. But with this, it just feels so long and drawn out, and I'm like, okay, can we hurry it up? I wanna get to the point of the story, and once we get there, it finally starts picking up when we start talking about Nolan and Calgara and their interactions with their tribe and Nolan's crew, and actually having some sort of great connection. It made me care about the Shandians only in that time period because they were being affected by that disease, and Nolan being that guy like, hey, I know how to fix this. You don't have to sacrifice your daughter to this so-called god to do that. You can do this. And he's given the opportunity to go help these people, given the opportunity to actually want to help these people. And it's such an interesting thing, because a lot of the time in these stories, in colonialism stuff, and in history, stuff like this kind of happens more often, unfortunately. I mean, Christopher Columbus, as you know, he ended up raiding that part of South America after discovering it, and I think it was for a whole other reason rather than just trying to colonize it, but just like, I believe how it goes is they meet this other tribe, and the other tribe says, hey, we'll give you the stuff that you want to bring back, but can you take care of this other tribe? And so they do so to get what they need. And so to see this refreshing story of like, okay, these people, this colonist, this person from the North Blue Kingdom actually wants to come help this person, actually wants to do something. And this brings us to the next question, is who's getting the most attention in this arc? It's the Skypieans. The Skypieans all together, and the Shandians, the Kami, they are kind of getting the most attention here. And the Straw Hats are here and there. They're kind of interlaced into the story. And it's the only thing that kind of keeps it interesting. Kind of. And then, of course, Nolan and Kangara. And so, honestly, and even if it's just for a brief second, a brief moment in the manga, it was good. It was actually good. That was the best part of Skypiea, and the ending. And having all these people giving all these attention just kind of also goes along with the pacing. It just makes it long. It makes it boring. It makes it uneventful, tiring. And so, like, it's just kind of hard to care about people that basically says, like, and I don't think this is what Oda meant. It's like, well, hey, here's some more characters. I want you to care about these characters. Oh, here's some more characters. I want you to care about these. Oh, here's the villains. I want you to start disliking these villains. I want you to see how threatening they are. And I don't think that was his intention, just to throw them out. But it's like, for me, it's such a... I don't know how to say this, but it's just so boring. It's boring. It's tiring. And with all these characters getting all the attention, it's like, okay, who's getting the most out of it? It's the Skypieans. Who's getting the most attention? It's the Skypieans. It's the Shandorians. It's the Kami. They are getting the most attention. They're supposed to be an important part to the story. But I could care less. And the Nolan and Kangara stuff is the only thing that makes it interesting, really. And the connections with Nika and the connections with Joy Boy and all that. That's the only things that it makes Skypiea interesting. And of course, I mean, as said before, Inaru's powers, but it's just like all these guys that get all these attention, it's just boring. And so this begs the question, how will this affect the following arcs? Not by much, except maybe the dial system. That's about it. And of course, the gold that they get at the end of the story. Mistakenly thinking they're actually... This was actually kind of funny at the ending, where they acted like they were trying to sneak and run away and act like actual pirates a little bit. I found that kind of funny. I like that. And it's a very Luffy thing to do. At the end of the day, I found that funny. I found that really funny. It was a misunderstanding. They were like, "Oh, hey, no, you can go ahead and take the gold. We don't need the gold. You're good. Go ahead, take it." Heck, they were gonna try to give him this huge golden pillar that was supposed to help the bell up. That Luffy smacked the crap, bro. I will say this: Luffy hitting him with the, I think it's the golden rifle. What? I'm gonna look it up. Hold up. That's not it. Hold up. What's the name of this? Not the dang Long Island arc. I'm gonna find it. I just saw it, dang it. Oh, man. Oh, that's great. That's great. I really like that scene. But that last and final punch where he has that huge ball of gold stuck on his hand. And it's called... What's it called? Yep, Golden Rifle. Gum Gum Golden Rifle, which is a... I'm going to kind of zoom in. That was a neat move. I really liked that move. It was cool. And how it connects to the bell, how it connects to that point into the story. I like that. I like that. And how it will affect the following arcs, it just basically shows there's more for Luffy to do. There's more for Luffy to get stronger, and there will be stronger opponents. And the best thing I'd say about Inaru is he shows that there's going to be stronger opponents that Luffy will lose to, that he will not win against all the time, which I appreciate that, because a lot of the time when it comes to shonen guys, shonen heroes, they tend to be the guy that always wins, the guy that always, ends up saving the day near the end, rather than, oh, now I've got your number. And that's the other thing I appreciate about Crocodile, where he was set up to where, although it was a bit long, he beats Luffy once, kills him, beats him a second time, beats him a third time, and then eventually, I think it's actually only 2 times. Beats him 2 times, and then at the end, where they're in the temple, and Nico Robin, or Miss All Sunday, or what's her name, or something like that. It's been a minute since I've read Alabasta, and so that was a neat one. That was a neat ending to the arc, and especially near the end with Alabasta, which, like I said, I might go back and take a look at the other arcs and reread them and have a refresh and talk about it again, because those arcs, like the beginning arcs with the Romance Dawn arc, or as with the East Blue Saga, just the entirety of the East Blue Saga was such a great way to introduce all the characters and made me introduced to one of my favorite characters, Nami. But unfortunately, she slowly, and I'm going to say this much, Nami kind of fell off at Skypiea for me. And I'm hoping she gets something better than just having her shirt off and wearing a bikini top the whole time. Which I know technically that was in Alabasta, but that wasn't the main reason. But it's like, with this, it just seems strange to have her pretty much through the entirety of the rest of the arc just have no shirt on. I don't know. I think that's just me. And then, of course, still, anyway, I digress. I think it'll barely affect the arcs, the other arcs. It won't really affect too much. It's not going to affect too much, besides maybe the dial system, but I don't even know if we're going to get any more of that. And so overall, with the last and final question I've got to ask is, overall, how did this arc make me feel? I felt disappointed because a lot of people were hyping it up. When I heard about it, when I started reading and watching it for the first time, and like, oh, I can't wait to get to Skypiea. Oh man, I'm excited. I can't wait to get to Skypiea. I can't wait to get to Skypiea. And I've had all this hype happen, and I'm like, this is the most, unfortunately, slow, boring, drawn out story I've ever had seen. And if the Straw Hats were not in this story and everybody was just their own separate character in a separate story, I would just be like, okay, why is this a story? Why is this? anything of value to me, you know? But I think without the Straw Hats, it wouldn't have made it for me. And having that ending scene with Luffy, having him punch Inaru through the, well, not necessarily through the bell, but onto the bell and ring the bell for cricket. Overall, it was a very boring and unfortunately very disconnected story for me. As stated before, I can honestly say these feelings of this arc is drawn out slow. Though it had the potential to be better, with the new characters introduced, I expected more for the story to be expanded upon. A more engaging story, especially the Shandians and Kami storyline feeling a bit bland alongside the Angel story, almost as said before, a bad parody of The Last Mohicans, just with the Straw Hats thrown into it. The villains are also somewhat unfinished and underused. The main villain, Inaru himself, is an interesting concept. Someone so self-absorbed in his own power, believing himself to be a god. This type of villain has been done before, but in Inaru's case, it still feels somewhat wasted as a character. And I like to believe Oda was aiming for something unique here, but the execution feels someone just tried to make someone else's story in his world. With so many characters in play, the arc loses focus so quickly. And the Straw Hats are easily the highlight, especially Sanji, Chopper, and to a certain extent, Robin. The ending, however, is great, especially how it connects to Cricket's ancestor, Noland, and the connection between Kalgara and Nolan, and all culminating in Luffy ringing the bell, wanting to ring the bell for that old man back in Jaya. Such a fantastic way to wrap up a story, but overall, the arc still feels unfinished, overstretched out. And so I'm going to use this allegory here. It's like cooking pasta, taking it out of the pot before it's fully done. Some of the parts of it are cooked, but the rest are still tough and hard to eat. Then you top it off with a great, well-made homemade sauce on top, but the dish itself becomes very uneven and disappointing. And so that's how Skypiea feels to me. It's a long, slow story filled with great ideas, but they weren't fully realized. With that being said, I am hoping the live action version and the anime remake give us the Skypiea honestly Oda truly intended for. One that just some of us that may have missed us for the first time reading and watching the story. Oh boy. Can't believe I made it through this. I wanted to do this review a little less scripted. I wanted to do a little bit more of where I just have my unfiltered thoughts being expressed while still having some clear and focused way of making a review. And considering doing the other arcs as well, hoping to really convey my opinion on it, really conveying what I see and what I enjoy and what I don't. But I do plan on doing it based where I am at in the manga, as well as I said before, so we can experience the story together in real time as I'm reading it. And so the next time we do another review, it may be a smaller review of long-reading Long Island arc. I may be only covering it just a bit. And the next major arc of the story, Water 7, which I've heard so many great things about that, and I genuinely do look forward to actually seeing more and more of those bits and pieces I've saw all connect together. And so, as that is being said, if you enjoyed this long-winded video, make sure you like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you can be notified of future uploads, the usual YouTuber shtick. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you later. I'm out. Peace.